Hi, I'm Andy Burrows with PCT TV, and I'm here today with Alexander Masters, who's an author and co-founder of iCancer.
Hello.
Thanks for joining us.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
You recently published a paper on the plutocratic proposal. Could you just tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, this is an idea for a new approach to funding, an approach that will bring in new money for neglected treatments or neglected potential treatments. So it's for, in a particular case, the particular place where I've already used this approach, a cancer drug, an oncolytic virus that showed all signs in the labs of being had some potential, and it needed to go into human trials. But no one would fund it for a variety of reasons that had nothing to do with its potential efficacy or risk. So I figured out, well, there were two of us, myself and Dominic Nutt, we figured out a way in which we could raise money for such neglected drugs, for such neglected research, bring them into clinical trials by accessing a new source of money that no one before had tried to get hold of. And it was a method that initially, when we talked about it, had everyone reeling back and saying, you cannot do that, that is completely unethical. And we have figured out a way to make it ethical and to show that it works. We've actually set up a trial in Uppsala in Sweden that is now running, that was started with this approach to funding in mind.
So what is this new approach?
Well, it's a very, very simple. It's essentially what you do is you get a rich patient who has the disease to fund the trial in return for a place on the trial. Now, the ethics of that initially sounds horrendous, because then you have a rich person buying access to trials that a poor person can't, or anyone less than a super rich person can. You get round the ethics of that by having a centralizing body at the center that organizes all this. But the requirement is that the rich person pay for everyone. They must pay for all the other people who are going to... This trial was not going to take place until they came along. The rich person comes along, pays for the whole trial, everyone on it, all the research, etc. And that makes it... The ethical objections then melt away. So I've written a number of pieces about it, but it's in this issue, the current issue of the British Journal of Medical Ethics, is their lead article as a proposal for a new way to do this, because no one thought of it before. And you can see why it's going to work. If you're the sort of person who has 2 million quid to throw about, and there are a number of them, I hear, you find that there are a number of drugs around that might be beneficial, but that can't afford to go into trial because you have a rare disease. In our case, we are raising money for neuroendocrine cancer. Why not throw the money at it? If you've got a prognosis of about 3 years, there's a chance that come the time when your traditional treatments are no longer working, as they so rarely, they don't work for that long with a cancer like that, you could then have a trial set up and ready to go. It's got to recruit everyone on that trial, but you can take part in assisting in that process. But you funded it, so basically it becomes your drug, but you have to share it. And you have to take it out of its limbo and put it into action. And if you can do that, you can make it ethical. And if you can make it ethical, you have access to a totally new source of money. And to my mind, that means millions, billions of pounds of money for rare diseases in particular, because it's those diseases where there's so much research that isn't funded.
So what's the next step where you've kind of created?
Well, now we need someone to, I mean, I'm a writer, I'm a biographer. And Dominic Nutt, the person I work with, he's a journalist. We're not medics, we're not experts. We've got this idea, and it's a good idea, and we've proved that it's ethically viable. Well, I think more than viable, it's robust, I suppose is the word you want to say. It's a good idea. What it needs now is coordination, organization. We need a sponsor to take us up and say, well, look, try it. What you've got to do basically is fund the development of this central organization that matches. I originally called it a dating agency because it effectively matched a poor research group with a rich patient. And as long as you could make sure that matching process was effective and ethical, and we've shown how to make it ethical, then it's really no different from any other funding process. It's just the researcher finds they get given a certain amount of money if they make the correct application for this piece of research. In return, all they have to do is set aside one place to make sure that that one place goes to a patient who should be on the trial anyway, just they happen to be a rich patient who paid for the whole trial. But setting that up and pushing that through requires the sort of expertise that a biographer and a features journalist don't have, and that's what we're looking for and why we're coming to this conference, to try and say, look, here we've got a wonderful idea, we've shown the difficult bit that it can work, can you make it work? Can you take it up both to fund but to direct and to show the sort of Well, data management is a huge part of it, gathering in the material, both about patients and neglected research, of which there's a considerable amount.
So it's collaborating and finding partners that you can work with.
People who work in this area.
Yeah.
I mean, half these signboards I can't read because I don't know what the words mean. So I need someone who knows what the words mean.
Yeah.
But we've got this far through our inexpertise. We tested this method. We raised over £2 million to start up a trial in Uppsala in Sweden into neuroendocrine cancer. And that was from scratch. And we did it by getting hold of a rich donor who was prepared to pay the money in return for a guaranteed place on the trial, assuming they remained, come the time, a suitable candidate. They don't get preferential access. They get, they just have to be a decent candidate.
So you say, as you say, you're not an expert in this area. How did you get into this? How did you first kind of think, oh, this is what?
A very, very dear friend of mine, an ex-girlfriend of mine, had neuroendocrine cancer, and I quickly got to realize there was nothing. The traditional therapies were going to help her for a while, but they'd run out. And I didn't want to feed her tons of vitamin C and turmeric and all this other stuff, and I got tired of the quack stuff. So I wondered if I could find a trial that might be ready for her, and there just wasn't any stuff.
Right.
But I did notice these several papers. I got it through looking at a YouTube video one night and noticed a little link and got to another link, that this very, very good research group in Uppsala in Sweden had published this work on an oncolytic virus that was very promising, but couldn't get the funding. So I just rang them up and said, how much do you want? I said, I'll get it for you if you put my friend on it.
Wow.
That was the deal.
Okay. Yeah, quite the story.
Yeah, and it's at the beginning of a story.
Yeah,
it's unfortunately not for my friend. She died before it could get going. But this is right at the start, and it deals so precisely with the things that are difficult in getting trials going, i.e. money for rare diseases, for research into unusual products. And you not only get that, you not only get the donation of money from the participant here, but you also get the patient's enthusiasm. What they want back is something far more valuable than a return on their investment, a financial return. They want a health return. They are really going to work for this, far harder than a venture capitalist.
Absolutely, yeah.
So you get the benefit of that, and in the case of the fellow who funded the trial we did in Uppsala, what he brought to it was huge business expertise. And love them though I do, up in Uppsala, they are not businessmen, they're researchers. There's no reason why they should be businessmen. He made sure that they got a good deal on things, he made sure things worked, he just kept it going. So the patient involvement was far more than financial. It was
much more of a partnership.
It was a partnership, it was a lot of skill that they could provide for the process and turn it from something that was stumbling along into something that actually happened. So now they've taken on their first patients.
Wow.
And the research looks good.
So how do you see it working, kind of expanding this to a larger scale in terms of we have a central database of potential matches?
Yeah, my idea would be to begin with, but this is just my idea. I mean, there could be many ways of doing it, I'm sure. You'd concentrate first on neuroendocrine cancer, because that's the area I know a little bit about. And it's a nice one. You make sure that worked. And so what you do is you get a database of, or you try and get some way of figuring out how do you get access to all those neglected pieces of research. Now, I've been speaking to loads of people in this wonderful conference who have said, oh, you could do it this way, you could do it that way, you could do it the other way. There's clearly lots of ways you could do it. And you've got to tie them up, match them, put them on a date with the rich patient who has this disease. Well, that you can get through advocacy organizations as well, and that sort of thing. So anyway, that's a lot of data analysis and so on, which I don't understand, but clearly the skills are in that hall at the moment. Then comes the fact that the ethics, you have to actually test it a couple of times and see whether this ethical situation holds up, but all these leading ethicists are applauding it. Then legally there's not really much complication with it, but you just have to keep testing it, I imagine. I mean, but you need the money to get it going, you need the sort of drive to get it going, and the ability to go out there and set up an office and bring the people in. I mean, it also could fund de novo work, because it's perfectly possible for someone to go along to a genomics team and say, in fact, we've got a genomics team interested in this, say, we'll fund this research into my disease if you can develop some new molecule or something that will help with this particular indication. The sort of money we're talking about is easily within reach. The sort of time we're talking about, 3 years. Well, a lot of people have a prognosis of around 3 years. And if they do this at the start of their treatment, so it's not something you wait, there's no point in them waiting until their treatments have failed and you're gathering in their desperation saying plonk all your money and sell your house or your mansion. This can only be done at the start of your treatment. You catch the person at the moment they are not desperate. Then they can make the investment, and that's the only time it's going to work. So you get around that. So in many ways, it is much less ethically objectionable than many clinical trials, which, you know, the person's on their last legs and you say, would you mind going into anything? Well, they'll do anything.
Yeah.
You've got them by the short and curlies. I mean, they're definitely going to do this.
Yeah.
And that is exploitation of a desperate situation.
Yeah.
It has to be done, because otherwise no one could know about the trials.
Right.
But it's a point, it's not just ethically equal. I think it's ethically stronger than many of the current fundraising techniques.
That's fascinating stuff. We'll be certainly keeping an eye on how it goes. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for having me along.